Alright, I'm going to try to give a quick explanation of the hydraulic system on a C5. And so I'm going to start out with hydraulic system number 1. This is hydraulic system number 1, and I put little notes throughout. This is kind of what my schematic looks like in my dash 1. So something that I found interesting is we've got two suction boost pumps, or boost pumps on the C5. We've got an electric one and a hydraulic one. And so the electric one is used on engine starting, and it's to provide that pressurized fluid from an unpressurized reservoir. And then once we get the engine pump started, then the engine pumps provide pressure, or engine pumps, ATM, PTUs, they'll provide the hydraulic pressure to turn the hydraulic suction boost pump. Let's see. So we end up with pressure coming from our reservoir, making its way down, and if we're going to start our engines, then at that point we're going to turn on our suction boost pump, and our suction boost pump is going to output its pressure. And the suction boost pump, as I wrote some notes and I have them throughout the page, like I said, kind of like in my dash 1, 1 minute for the first start of the day, used for engine start, ground ops, takeoff, landing, to pressurize lines to the engines and ATMs to prevent cavitation. And so the pressure will continue on. It'll basically unmate this switch, which will turn off our boost press low so long as the pressure is above its predetermined value, as the dash 1 says. Then we'll have pressure making its way over here and down, over through, all the way basically so we would be able to start our ATMs if we wanted to. Right now this valve is closed. It's kind of drawn as and the system's running. Then we go back over here, it'll overcome this one-way check valve, make its way through our suction line shutoff valve, provide pressure to the accumulator, and the whole purpose of the accumulator is to prevent cavitation. Up, it'll make it through one side of the pump here, up through the other side of the pump here. And so when we end up starting our engines, then at that point, once the engine starts turning, we start one pump at a time, and that's to prevent the drag. So, and it's the top pump is what we start. So I'll kind of cross out the bottom pump for engine starting. Then we'll end up with pump pressure coming out at 3,000 psi plus or minus 150 at 61 gallons per minute. Then it'll come up, unseat this press low light. Press low light will go out, and pressure will make its way through here, down, and basically to the pressurized side of the hydraulic system. Through to the reservoir, and at this point, this is when our hydraulic suction boost pump starts turning, and then it'll start producing and sending hydraulic fluid in that direction and out. So I found that pretty interesting. That's the simplified version. And as you can see over here, we've got an arrow that says then we'll have hydraulic pressure to our various components. Because we started with the top pump only, hydraulic fluid couldn't make its way over here to the bottom pump side to put out this press low light. But once we do finally get the engine running, then we're going to come through and we're going to turn on our bottom pump, which then will allow fluid to make its way through non-bypassable filter, extinguishing the press low light, and also pressurizing the manifold. And if I didn't say it already, the whole purpose of starting one pump at a time is to reduce the drag on the engine during starting. Let's see, so that's the pressurized side. We have pressure sitting down here by our PTUs at our ATMs waiting just in case to be started. Let's see. Oh, and as our pumps start putting out pressure, we also have fluid making its way up this way. It's kind of like the case drain to kind of keep the pump cool and stuff. Making its way up through, and basically through our heat exchanger area. Well, I guess I should say through our temp control valve. And so it says right here that it's going to regulate it at 130 to 150. So basically, if it's above 130 degrees, then it's going to modulate in a way that, let's say, or it tries to keep the fluid at 130 to 150. So let's say the fluid was above 150, then it's going to shift close, making and forcing the fluid to make its way up through here, through our heat exchangers. And the heat exchangers, kind of like it says right here, it's in either number 2 or number 3 main fuel tanks. But for this one, for engines number 1 and 2, they're going to be a number 2 fuel tank. For engines number 3 and 4, they're going to be a number 3 fuel tank. And it just kind of exchanges the heat with the fuel. So it heats the fuel, cools the hydraulic fluid, makes its way through this top side, down, through our bypassable filter, and all the way back to our reservoir. And another quick note over here are, I guess I should do it like this, these bleeder restrictor valves, their only purpose is to relieve bubbles in the system. Also worth mentioning is down here is our hydraulic pressure indicator, and this is where we're going to get our hydraulic pressure reading from the transmitter here. Like I told you before, this is the pressurized line in here, so it'll go through this kind of snubber, and the transmitter will pick it up and it'll send it to our gauge.